Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of our participants. Thank you for joining our webinar today. So the webinar today is titled Enlightening the Brand Building Audience Response Link. So with us today are Professor Cleopatra Velotsu. Cleopatra. She will be the speaker for today, and Cleopatra is also the editor-in-chief of Journal of Product and Brand Management. And also together with us, we have two moderators, which are Professor Garry and also Distinguished Professor Ooi. So let me go through some housekeeping before we start. So at your control panel, you can see the orange arrow. So that opens and closes your control panel. And then you can change the audio option. But for information, all of the attendees' microphones are muted. So if you do have any questions to ask Cleopatra later on, just write it down at the questions tab. And then Prof. Garry and Prof. Ooi will then pick it up and ask during the Q&A session. So this session will be recorded and shared with everyone 1 hour after this webinar. And participants who attended the full webinar will receive an attendance certificate from Emerald Publishing and also the recording link later. So without further ado, I will now pass the session over to Prof. Garry and Prof. Ooi. Prof. Garry.
Okay, thank you so much, Rosita. So hello, and thank you for joining our webinar today titled Enlightening the Brand Building Audience Response Link. So the event is organized by UCSI University, UCSI Graduate Business School, and Emerald Publishing. So I'm Garry from UCSI University, and both Distinguished Prof Ooi and I will be your moderator for today's webinar. So the webinar is about 1.5 hours long with 30 minutes for question and answers. So let's get started with the welcoming remark by the UCSI Graduate Business School Dean, Distinguished Professor Dr. Ooi Kheng-Boon.
Thank you, Garry. Good afternoon from Malaysia, and thank you everyone for joining the webinar. I am Kheng-Boon, the Dean of the UCSI Graduate Business School, UCSI University Malaysia. We are extremely thrilled and encouraged to see the number of responses. I understand from Garry and Ms. Rosita that we have more than 530 participants registered today, and I would like to take the opportunity to thank all the participants who have joined us from far and wide. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Professor Cleopatra Velotsu from the Adam Smith Business School of the University of Glasgow, UK, and the Editor-in-Chief of Journal of Product and Brand Management, Emerald, for taking time to share her insights on the topic, Enlightening the Brand, Building Audience Response Link. Prof. Cleopatra is a prolific writer and has published extensively, and it's our wish that you will find this webinar useful and informative. Finally, today's webinar would not be possible without the support and coordination from Ms. Rosita and Mr. William from Emerald Publishing, who has generously provided us with a platform to host the webinar. Thank you very much, and I hope our cooperation between UCSI University and Emerald will continue to prosper in the near future. Thank you very much again, and over to you, Garry.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof. Ooi. So we will now kickstart by introducing our honorable speaker, Cleopatra. So Professor Cleopatra is a professor of brand management in the Adam Smith Business School of the University of Glasgow, a visiting professor at the University of Bari, Italy, University of Bergamo, Italy, President University, Indonesia, Hellenic Open University, Greece, and University of Coimbra, Portugal, and the head of the Marketing Research Unit of the Athens Institute of Education and Research. Her primary research interest is on brand management and has published over 60 articles in international journals and presented over 100 papers in international academic conferences. She's editing the Journal of Product and Brand Management since 2014, served as an associate editor of the Journal of Business Research since 2019, and editorial board members of various academic journals, while she has been involved in the organization of many international academic conferences in marketing and brand management. A very impressive profile. Without much further ado, I will now pass the control to Cleopatra. Over to you.
Hello, hello. Thank you for the invitation. It's a great honor to be among so nice people in the other end of the world. So it's very early in the morning for me. It's mid-afternoon for you. Thank you so much for taking the time to invite me and for thinking about me. And you all almost made me look as important with all these things you were saying. I'm not important at all. I'm just a normal human being as everybody else. I was born in Athens from a family that my father never finished the primary school. My mother never finished the secondary school. My father was a taxi driver. So I'm a very normal person as everybody else. And I have a motto in life. And my motto is learn something new every day. So the important thing is to try, for me, is to try to improve myself. And that's what I'm doing. And that is the situation now. Let me share my screen and start talking about the topic. Today, I'm going to talk to you about something very close to my heart. And what is very close to my heart is branding. I got all my 3 degrees from Greece. My first degree was in management, business administration. The second degree was an MBA majoring in marketing. And my PhD was in brand management. Oh, we lost Rosita, and I'm not sharing the screen anymore.
We can see your screen, Prof. Yeah.
You can, yeah, but do you see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Because I cannot see my screen in the, anyway, if you see my screen, we are fine. Following that, when I was about to finish my studies, I got my first job in the UK. I stayed for 2 years in my first employment, and I've been working in the University of Glasgow since 1999. So they made the mistake of hiring me in the previous century, and they cannot really easily change it at this point, even if they want to, and I'm just joking. I've been very lucky in my life because so many people have invited me to do things. And my focus in terms of academia always was, from the PhD up to today, brand management. My PhD was in the brand management area, the role of brand managers. And ever since, most of my 60 publications, because now it's not about 60, it's exactly 60, are in brand management. I would have said 55, 53 of them. And I keep working only in brand management. So the only area that I'm working on is brand management and not any other area. Do not approach me for anything else. I am totally useless. If you approach me for brand management, I know a little bit because there is so much knowledge and I'm learning every single day. Why brands? Why I'm so interested in brands? Why I'm working in brands? Brands in any sector, brands of any nature. So international brands, luxury brands, place brands, tourism brands, financial brands, any brand. Because I think that brands are in the heart of marketing and the business strategy. I cannot envision any company doing anything right without, first of all, sorting out what its brand is and what it's trying to achieve through its brand. I have seen very many of my colleagues focusing on other topics, such as 10, 15 years ago, online, or 20 years ago. 20 years ago, it wasn't online, it was direct marketing. Now, in the last year or two, is metaverse. But I think all of this as fads, because if the deep thinking behind all of this is not there, we are in a big problem. And brands are behind all of this thinking. So brands should be guiding all the decision making of companies and should be used in order to develop long-term strategies. And that's why I feel that brands is the area that I want to work on rather than anything else, and I'm focusing on it. So marketing and all the activities we do is like asking someone on a date, and that's not mine. I'm not that clever. I found it somewhere, and I thought that it was very, very right. Branding, on the other hand, is the reason to say yes. So branding gives, in reality, the reasons of acting for companies and the reasons for acting for consumers. If the brand is not right, consumers will never follow the company. You can have the best online or offline campaign. You can have the best communication, distribution. If your brand is not right, if your offer is not right, you will not be chosen again. So brands are super important. And that's why they are in the heart of me. And I have been reading about them since 1992, which is over 30 years. Don't say to anybody. Since I started my working on my proposal for my PhD. So for over 30 years, I'm reading and I'm trying to think about brands. What are the things that I have seen in these 30 years of engagement with the literature on brands? In the beginning as a PhD student, later on as a researcher, and now as a professor, or whatever, call me as you like. I have seen that there were some frameworks introduced a long time ago that are trying to explain to us what brands really do and how the brand actions from the company side translates to consumer actions. But these frameworks tend to be very dated. I'm thinking of Keller, I'm thinking of Aker, I'm thinking of the Sonatony. All of those are very dated networks. A lot of this work is specifically focusing on service as a context. And this in the beginning surprised me. And surprised me that I couldn't understand why, especially when I was a younger researcher. As I was growing and I was reading and I was understanding, I really understood why services was the context and that many people use. And this is because services are a complex context that has a very big diversity and a lot of tangible and intangible elements and varying interactions, far more than intangible good or anything else. A very good context as well could have been the place brand or tourism, if you want to see it as different than services, but this is too narrow in comparison to brands, and that's why it seems that most companies, most researchers have decided to use services when they are trying to see how consumers link with brands in order to inform their understanding. What surprised me is that most is an understatement. All the existing brand building work that I have come across focuses on positive things, such as more sales, increased loyalty, positive reactions from consumers, and very little work, especially conceptual, examines negative things. However, we know these days that consumers engage and feel and think negatively about brands, and that this interaction could be even more important and fundamental than the positive interaction, but it's still under-researched. Some work illustrates the mechanism between financial value creation impact or brand growth, but there is very little work trying to see what are the actual behavioral responses that consumers have in a more holistic way. All of these are characteristics of the empirical models that exist. Therefore, I realized that there are shortcomings, and the shortcomings are coming from the following characteristics. When I was in my undergraduate degree, so far before I started my PhD, a very wise professor of ours was telling us that undifferentiated marketing is a very good strategy for many companies. And that was back in the 80s. We now know that undifferentiated marketing can only serve one segment. And with the competition we are in, if we have decided to be totally inflexible, we cannot grow if we decide to adopt this kind of practices. Was he wrong? No, he wasn't. He was thinking about the environment at the time. And he was talking about his experience at the time. Again, I don't see my screen, and I'm back. I'm sorry about that. Oops, here we are. Excellent. Sorry for the interruption. I'm back. This is because brands and branding and environments evolve over time. So quite a lot of the knowledge we had about how brands work and how they develop were based on old news on what was happening 20, 30, 10 years ago, ignoring changes. So firms and branding and reaction of customers are changing, and some of the changes that I observed as I was thinking about branding is that we have a brand meaning that is nowadays flexible and not firm and not stabilized, changing all the time, and that is not produced only for the company, but is co-produced, co-created with other. Again, I don't see my screen. Is there anything wrong that I'm losing my screen? Here we are.
There's no problem. We can still see your screen.
Yeah, but I cannot see it. At some point, the screen is lost, and I see the people, and I cannot keep talking if I don't see my screen because I don't know what will come next. Anyway, sorry about that. Many apologies to the audience for all of these technical problems. In any case, brands are co-created. We know that very well, and it's well documented the last many years, 10, 15. And many companies are partially losing the control of the development of their brand building and their brand meaning. We also know that brand identity, which is the internal view of the brand, is now even informed from what others say. We know that the environment is changing. Things are going in a speed that we never saw before. What is changing in 2 years is what was changing 2 centuries ago in a century. So things are changing, and all this change influences brand in the environment. We know that quite a lot of consumers express themselves through brands. I don't know how good or bad it is, but it is a fact. We can go on into ethics and to priorities of humans later on in a different discussion, not today, but this is happening. And we know as well that consumers are not only positively thinking about brands, but they're also thinking negatively about the brands, not capturing previous models. And we also need to know that their views might change from positive to negative to neutral, again positive, depending on what is happening over time. So all of these things were not captured in existing research. So what happened? What happened was that this crazy woman decided to spend quite a lot of years of her life trying to develop a framework that was incorporating existing research, existing knowledge, and was updating this knowledge based on the trends. The overall work took me around 7 years. I know that it might sound crazy to you because it's only a literature review, as you call it, piece of work that was just accepted 2 weeks ago from the Journal of Brand Management. But that's the case. I decided to send it to a specialized journal because I want to help my discipline. And I decided to send to the Journal of Brand Management for review and not the Journal of Product and Brand Management, because I didn't want anybody to think that I'm publishing my solo work in the journal I'm editing and I had preferential treatment. I'm very happy that the reviewers and editors of the Journal of Brand Management liked the piece and it is now out. So what did I do? The first thing I did was that I went back to my notes and I went back to what I knew and I went back in the database as well. And I did a search on papers that were reporting brand building processes or sub-processes. So I looked at any existing brand building published frameworks. And I found quite a few. I will show you the number when I finish with the overall process. I read them carefully. And I said, fine, this is what we knew. What we knew, though, is informed from changes. And therefore, I decided to identify work, academic work again, that is identifying changes in branding and changes in services. Why services? For the wise reason that previous researchers had used. It's a very complex process, and therefore this complex environment context will give me richer information and diverse, complex and diverse context. Fair enough. So through this reading of the trends, I realized that there's certain things happening. So I reflected on the original frameworks and I decided to identify work on the trends, on the specific trends. So my third task was to dig more in depth on the specific trends that were there. So one, what we knew about brand building. B, what is changing on brand building and services. C, specific information on these changes in relation to brand building. And all of this was the first process, that was the identification of sources. What with all of this? I identified all these papers and I started doing something with this literature, because having the literature in a folder is not very helpful. You need to do something with this literature after you get it. So the first thing was analyzing and interpreting the papers. First, the first step, then the second step, then the third step. And developing or thinking, not developing, thinking about their place, potential place in a framework of brand building. So whether the new trends should be included or shouldn't be included. And clearly, as I was doing this process, the two steps were interacting, and I was going back to the literature whenever needed. And all right, I was acquiring thinking on whether these new trends should be included or not. What I was doing next? What I was doing next was that I was trying to update my knowledge. It started from an attempt to teach it, and then it went more and more and more in depth to make it more fresh, update, improved from what I already knew. So I was developing some frameworks, and I was adjusting these frameworks with my new reading and my new thinking. And when I had a nice, good base after 2-3 years, I started also presenting these frameworks to academics and practitioners. So I started going to research seminars. I started sharing it with colleagues. I started presenting it as a keynote speech in conferences. And all of this as well was giving me ideas. And the ideas it was giving me were going back to the analysis and interpretation and framework inquiry and back to new literature. So how all these things work? In terms of literature, in step 1, I found general brand building papers, services brand building, and brand building specific contexts other than services. And these are the papers I identified. There might be more, but this is what I identified. And I also looked at evolution of branding papers and evolution of services papers. And for the specific components of the model, I read over the years over 300 papers. In the first years, I was not keeping a correct record of this, so I cannot give you the exact number. I'm very sorry. That was clumsy of me, but I was never thinking that this work will end up being a paper. It started as my own personal query. So I don't have the exact number, but it might have been 500-600 papers. I was reading and reading and reading and improving. In total, I presented about 35 previous versions of this framework to validate it to academics and to practitioners, some of them in practitioner seminars, some of them in maybe MBA classes, all sorts of presentations. So all of this that I'm presenting today to you is informed both by the literature as it was and new insights. The new insights come from the literature, trends, from academics who saw versions of this framework, and from practice, practitioners who saw this framework, and we discussed about this framework with them. The first thing that I realized as I was reading is that there is an issue with what is a brand. So as I was writing an editorial with Elena Delgado Bellester, earlier, I had already started working on the framework, but in this editorial, we decided to give a clear definition, in our opinion, about the brand based on my initial reading and some discussion with her. And we decided that a brand is a collection of actual and emotional characteristics associated with an offer that is identified through a symbol. And this symbol helps this offer differentiate itself from the marketplace. And that is a brand. Having that in mind, we realized that the brand needs to have a meaning. So if we go back to definition, the actual and emotional characteristics of the brand make its meaning. And what is a brand meaning? The brand meaning is the brand connotations or association to anyone without a specific audience in mind. So when we're talking about brand meaning, we're talking about what people, we don't know which audience, people in general might be thinking about the brand. So thinking about these components and analyzing these components, it was identified, and I'm suggesting in this paper, that there are 5 main components. 3 components are related to what the brand is. And this is symbol characteristics, product characteristics, and person characteristics. And 2 components are related with what the brand does. And this is what is the experience of the brand and what is the user of the brand, how consumers think about the users of the brand. And all these 5 things are the connections in the minds of the consumers, real or not real, imagined, that audiences, and not just consumers, any audience might have about the brand. To be more precise, if we are talking about the symbol, It can be the name. We all know the names. The logo, created characters, scent, sound, color, fonts, or anything else that can come through our senses. Shape, bottle sometimes. So Coca-Cola's bottle is a symbol. So anything that we can get through our senses. When we're talking about the product, I'm going back to the guru of marketing, the father of marketing, modern marketing, Kotler. It's any offer, including physical goods, service, experience, events, people, and the list is endless. Places. And when we talk about person, is any personal human characteristics associated with a brand. It can be the personality, it can be the gender, it can be the age, social class, values of the brand, the nationality, the network of brands, friends and enemies, brands that are the brand competes with and are against, and brands that the brand is co-branding or co-creating in its history, its goals. All of these characteristics are elements of the brand as a person. Going about user and experience characteristics, user characteristics is the typical profile of people that are buying using the brand. And experience characteristics is where, when, and how this brand is going to be purchased and used. So all of these elements are the elements of the brand meaning. However, I was not happy with that. I knew now what the brand was in broad terms, but I could not see how it can be developed. So with all this inquiry over the years, this is the full model that was developed. And take a big breath, because we are going to discuss about this just now. The first thing that the brand does, or should be doing, is something starting from the group of people who want to produce the brand and send it to the audience, which is typically a company. There are very few brands that were not produced by companies or individuals that want to sell them. And the first thing that they should be thinking about is a brand purpose. What is a brand purpose? Is the central aim of the brand linked with how the brand can help the society, the environment, over and above profit. If a brand doesn't have a purpose, then it's very unlikely that this brand is going to be helpful for the overall society. This purpose comes from the needs of the world, what you know, and what you are passionate about in your company. Between these three, you find the purpose. The purpose is slightly different than mission and vision, because mission and vision are both related with what the brand does for the company, and it describes what the brand offers, and vision is what the brand wants to bring back to the company in the future most of the times. So the purpose is what the brand does. Sometimes mission and vision is also encoding part of the purpose, and it is very interesting to see how the description of brands, big brands like Unilever, Procter & Gamble, and so on and so forth, are changing over time, reflecting more the purpose of the brand. Knowing what is the purpose of the brand, companies then develop brand identities. And what is brand identity? Brand identity is practically the symbol, the product, the person, the user imaginary, and the experience imaginary I was talking earlier on. But in this case, these things are in the minds of the people who support the brand internally or volunteer for the brand. So the people who are actually developing and delivering the brand. I hope you are with me so far, and I keep presenting, but my screen all the time is lost, and I'm trying to make some time to get it back. Excellent. So internally, whoever wants to develop the brand sits down, thinks about the purpose and the identity, and the identity, as I explained, is the internal associations and then the company associations about the brand, and starts signaling these associations. We are very familiar with the marketing mix. The communication, distribution, pricing, all of this is signaling to the audience and is aiming to say what the brand is, educate the audience on the brand meaning, and create experiences. Experiences are memorable impressions internal to the customers, positive or negative, triggered from brand interactions, and occur in various stages of the contact with the brand. Depending on how much consumers know and how involved they are, you might have different levels of experience, but it's a different discussion. I'm not going to go in detail here. But in any case, consumers get their first impressions about the brand typically through signaling from the company and experiences they have. And what happens? They develop immediate views and long-term views of the brand. Immediate and long-term views about the brand as a symbol, product, person, user, and experience imaginary. And all of these are translated to them in benefit, functional, symbolic, and experiential. More specifically, they receive images. So every time they come in contact with the brand or they hear about the brand, an image is created. This image is a view of what the brand is. Consumers or external audiences will not only receive one image, they will receive many. And this image go to a portfolio of images that form the reputation. So the reputation is the overall accumulated view of the brand formed by images. To that extent, at this moment, we're talking about internal images only. Very soon, we will integrate external and uncontrollable images too. All right, and this interaction with the brand that develops first impressions, images, and long-term impressions, reputation, develop brand knowledge. What is brand knowledge? Brand knowledge is the overall portfolio of knowledge around the brand. In other words, how strong the reputation of the brand is in your mind. And not everybody has the same knowledge. What consumers know is different. When I talk to my students and I'm talking to them how much they know about potatoes, they think that they know everything, or carrots. When I bring this side to them and I'm telling them, you know, very little, there are over 500 types of potatoes and there are carrots of different colors, different shapes, and so on and so forth. And this is for simple things that we think that we know everything. It is just an indication of how little some consumers might know about any brand at any point in time. So clearly, brands, see again the same. Sorry guys, that's better now. So brands are not known as much as audiences would like them to be known. Some people only are aware that they exist. Some others are a bit familiar, and there is a smaller, most of the times, a portion of the market that has deep knowledge about the brands. So the share of mind, the understanding of the meaning, and the insights on the specific elements of the brand meaning varies, and all of this is developed through the signaling. The connection between internal branding and market meaning is moderated from how clear the messages are, to what extent audiences are exposed to signaling, how credible the messages are, how consistent, and how distinctive. So the more clear, the more the higher the exposure, the higher the credibility, the consistency, the distinctiveness of the messages, the stronger the knowledge about the brand, the stronger the brand meaning. And what happens next? What happens next is that consumers start developing attitudes, assessments towards the brand. They are favorite, not favorite, trusted, not trusted, respected, disrespected, overall liked or not liked, or anywhere in between. And they start developing feelings, sensations, comfort, attachment, attitudinal loyalty, harmony. And in the end, they develop a relationship. And what is a relationship? A relationship could be positive or negative, strong or weak. So we are talking about love, hate, or like and dislike. No relationship, no passion is indifferent, which is the worst thing that a company can have. Indifferent brands don't have any strength. Typically, a relationship involves feelings, emotional exchange, and two-way communication, willingness to communicate with the brand in a regular basis, both receive and send messages. What moderates transforming the knowledge into a mindset? How relevant this knowledge is, the extent that we agree, how involved the customers is, how experienced they are, whether the promise was indeed delivered. All of these things, and possibly others I didn't think or I didn't find through the analysis, influence how the brand meaning is transferred into the market mindset. And what happens next? Then we are talking about action. And market action is intention to act and actual behavior. It can take three different forms. Share of voice is willingness to communicate with the brand, positive feelings, positive feedback, word of mouth, brand evangelism. And share of wallet is the extent that the brand will be purchased, preferred, used, and other reactions. So, for example, willingness of the customers to co-create or sacrifice something in order to get the brand, to join brand or anti-brand communities if it is negative. And as you can see, both attitudes and both the market mindset and the action have both positive and negative outcomes, depending on whether we are talking about positive assessment of the brand meaning or negative assessment of the brand meaning. What moderates the relationship between the market mindset and the action are things like benchmarking. I have this information and I'm comparing this information with what I think about myself. Resources. Yes, I like Porsche, but I cannot buy it. Needs. Do you really have the need to buy this product or not? Do you have the need to socialize? You might then want to join a brand community, more likely to join. And involvement. Is it a product? Is the product category in the brand something important to me or not? And that model so far looked very static and looked like a straightforward way of explaining how the company starts the brand building process up to the end of consumers acting around the brand. However, still something big was missing, and this is co-creation. So co-creation was added through feedback loops. In particular, there is co-creation through the actions of the brand, and when it's internal to the company, these actions go to the company and to the managers, co-creation of the brand identity. If it goes to information about the brand, co-creates the brand meaning. And if it goes and influences our feelings, it's co-creation of the market mindset. There is also another loop here, which demonstrates that individual consumers use their feelings in order to reevaluate information about the brand. So if I feel positively about the brand, I might be willing to not pay attention to certain shortcomings. So for example, if I visit my favorite restaurant that is owned by friends and I've been eating there for years, once a week, and I'm most of the times super happy, and things are terrible, the food doesn't arrive in time, it doesn't come in the right place, and so on and so forth, I already have positive attitude, positive feelings, I love the brand, positive relationship. Rather than saying, this brand is not good, I will be really worried, and I will go back and I will say to the owners, is everything okay? And this is because of my existing views about the brand that influence the way I'm thinking about what I see, the information I see. The existing reputation has made me develop a specific mindset about the brand that influences the assessment about the brand characteristics and doesn't do much harm in this case. On the contrary, if there is a brand I really feel very uncomfortable about, I might say exactly the opposite. I might say, this brand is absolutely terrible. I don't like it at all. It is not doing the things for me. And what it did now that it seems good, it is just fake. It's not real. So this is how the framework works. And in reality, this feedback loops are trying to say that the brand reputation is not only produced by controlled and semi-controlled signaling, producing images and resulting to brand reputation. It is only also produced by uncontrolled messages from various audiences. And the various audiences could be other consumers, competitive offers and actions, other entities associated with the brand. And it also implies that the reputation and the images fit back to one another. So this framework is trying to encapsulate the whole process and consists, as I presented it, and I hope that it wasn't too tiring for you and you are still there with me, from three loops. The chain, which is the main process, the influencing factors, and the feedback loops. So it looks very complex when you see it, but when you think about it, I hope that is very logical. That was all from me today, and I hope you enjoy it. I took 50 minutes as I promised from the beginning, so I can get any questions. And I was also asked to present the journal, and I can do that if you so wish. So what do you want me to do now?
Prof, maybe you can proceed with the presentation of the journal. Then later we can take the Q&A.
Okay, I am trying to sort out things because I cannot find my screen, believe it or not, with a program you are using. So I'm trying to find my screen again.
Okay.
That's me. Better. Do you see the journal now?
We are still seeing the old screen.
Yes, and you see the journal of product and brand management, correct?
No, not at the moment. This is still your previous screen on the audience response link.
Is Emerald here to check why you cannot see that?
Okay,
Because
this is
I am
the...
showing you.
I'll take the control and then I will give you back the control. Yeah, Cleopatra, hold on.
Thank you so much. You are always superb, my dear friend. Share screen is now paused, it says. And what do I do next?
Hold on. Okay, we can see your screen.
For
Yes,
the very nice people that are here, many apologies that I cannot control things as well as I wanted. Thank you about staying with me and trying to help me out. Do you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, let's try again. This one, is it a journal?
Yes.
This one, yes.
Excellent. All right, Journal of Product and Brand Management. This presentation was developed last week in order to present for my colleagues to present it in a conference. And since I was asked, I have it readily available, so I can do it. It's not a new journal. To start with, Emerald will be very happy because it is an Emerald journal. It is in the market for 31 years, introduced in 1992, so it's not a new journal. It issues 8 issues a year with 10 papers per issue. It only publishes papers on the areas of product and brand management, and the editorial board is updated every year using specific criteria. I am very happy that we have this team managing it, but I'm very sad at the same time for different reasons. Emerald kindly trusted me in 2013 November to start editing the journal. So I'm writing in my CV quite often that I started in 2014 because it was only 1 month of 2013 I was doing it, and I was not alone. I was with somebody that I didn't know at the time, and now is a very dear friend outside academia too, Francisco Guzman. With Francisco, we got a journal that you will see later on was not what it is now, and we worked very hard on it for 9 years. However, Francisco felt that that was enough for him, and he decided to retire. I tried to convince him to stay. He didn't want to stay. And now I am working with 6 associate editors instead of having 2 editors, which makes more sense because that means that more people are trained. Our associate editors are all specializing in product and brand management issues. They have a very good publication record in journals as good or better than the Journal of Product and Brand Management. And they're coming from the US, Italy, Denmark, the UK, and Ireland. And we have a nice balance of people with different specializations, and the criteria of choosing them was the specialization of product or brand management and their publication record and their willingness to help, because all of this is service to the community. It doesn't include anything else but service. They don't get anything else but the glory. In addition, we have 16 members of the Senior Advisory Board that are very nice people that are giving us advice. And Francisco now joined the Senior Advisory Board. At least he stayed in the journal in this capacity. And we also have 69 members of the Editorial Review Board that are people that are producing at least 3 or 4 reviews a year. The Editorial Review Board is updated every year with people getting in and going out. This year we had 7 or 8 new ones, and we had 5 or 6 who retired for various reasons. And we are also working with around 700 reviewers a year. So if you are approached to review for us, bear in mind that you are one of about 800 to 900 people who kindly help the journal be what it is. Rankings. We are doing great in Scopus Site Score, Q1 for the last 4 years. Our tracker, site score tracker, is going higher and higher. The same goes for the 2 years impact factor, as you can see on the Web of Science of Garry. We are doing great in Australia, that we are now an A, but these are not mirrored in the UK system, the CABS or ABS list, and the Germany, the system in Germany, the German system. And this is because it seems that both systems are very subjective. So in the UK, in the last round of changes, we were not asked to give hard information on the journal. And to our surprise, there were no changes in any rankings in the marketing field. I checked carefully because I want to learn, and as I said, I'm trying to learn something new every day. And I realized that in other disciplines there were changes, but in particular in marketing, there are no changes in the rankings, with the exception of 3 or 4 inclusions of new journals since the 2015 list. We are looking into it. We don't know why it's happening. The journal has changed significantly. When we got it in 2013, it was Q2 or Q3, and is changing significantly over the years, and we hope that the other lists will also reflect that. And this is the hard evidence on the change of the journal. On the left-hand side, you can see the site scores. When we got the journal, it was less than 2 here, and now it's 8, more than 8, almost 9. And the impact factor, that, as you can see, started in 2017, and this is because before that there was no impact factor released. The journal was not the impact factor list. So we are doing great. We are very happy, and we are going great in relation to other journals that are very well respected in marketing. And as an example, I am giving the comparative statistics with the European Journal of Marketing. You can see that the level in the objective measures is almost the same. There we were doing great as well. Up to 2020, we had a constant increase, but then for 2021 and 2022, we had a slight decrease every year. It seemed that the pandemic had an effect. The statistics from this year seem to indicate that we are going to go more than the 2020 number of submissions. So we are already in the first 5 months, something like 35 submissions more than the same period of last year. And on average, we have more submissions or equivalent submissions with 2020. So we're expecting around this number of submissions for next year, for this year, sorry, coming here. Acceptance rates. These are not great. We have a very large number of desk rejects, and we do that because if a paper cannot go through, we feel that it doesn't have a chance to go through. We don't want to tire reviewers with papers that are not strong. Reviewers give their time voluntarily, and they should only see work that has a chance to go through. However, I read all the papers. When I am in doubt, I ask one of the associate editors, and I typically send comments on why the paper was desk rejected. So very rarely I don't send comments, and when I don't send specific comments, it's for one of the two reasons. One reason is that the paper is out of the scope of the journal. So, for example, yesterday I desk rejected the paper on on nostalgia in marketing, not brand nostalgia. That's not a branding paper. That's not a product paper. So desk rejected. Or the paper is so below the benchmark that in order to write a review, I will need 3 hours because everything needs to be commented. And I cannot do that. So I write that it's so far below the standards that unfortunately I cannot give you feedback on that. However, the papers that go through the desk reject have 50-50 chances almost to be accepted, which is the good news. So if you get through the desk reject, try hard, and you have very good chances to go through. Submissions from all over the world. You can see that, primarily from
Prof,
United
I'm so
States,
sorry.
India, and China. Yeah,
The slide, it seems like it's not moving.
I am moving it. I don't know what's wrong. So can you stop the presentation and give me the presentation again, please? I am moving
Okay.
this slide. I can tell you that for sure.
All right. G, are you there, William?
Can you see my
Yes,
slide
I am.
now? Can you see my slide now?
Yeah. Yes,
Yes,
yes, we can see
submission.
that. Okay.
Which slide are you seeing? Are you seeing the map, the word
Yes.
map?
The map.
Yes, the
Excellent.
map.
Do you want me to go back to the previous slides or not?
I think it's fine. You can just continue.
Because there were all these slides before, right?
Yeah. If you wish, you can also go back. Yeah, it's fine.
So very quickly, this is the editorial team. These are the rankings. Oops. You don't want to cooperate today. These are the rankings. This is the rankings on site score and impact factor of branding journals. This is a comparison. Oops, it doesn't want to work. With the European Journal of Marketing. These are the submissions. These are the acceptance rates. Here. Better?
Prof,
Now.
sorry, I still don't really see the screen. I'm not sure whether there's a problem with my screen.
What
Prof,
about the
wait,
rest?
Yeah,
Now
same here. Same here, Cleopatra. It's quite blurred. Just now we could see the map. Now it's just like a line, a blurry line. So
I don't know what is wrong.
Can you click on the view participants view so that you can see what we are viewing?
Where is the participant view? View
Okay,
participant view.
Yeah,
Found
you see the
view,
file.
View attendees, audience view. Okay.
Yes, audience view. Yes. Can you see that?
I don't know.
now it's okay.
Screen sharing is not paused.
Oh.
Do you see the map now?
I mean, we could see an overlap of your photo and the map.
Now?
Hold on. I think it's the line. Hold on.
And I can see screen share is now paused and I cannot remove it.
Okay.
Did you pause it?
Hold on.
Let me do it again.
Okay, you try
Now?
again. Hold on. Not yet. You click and then you give it like a few seconds. Yeah.
Can you see it now? I'm very sorry for the audience. Many apologies to all of the nice people that are in the room, and we are giving you grief with all of that. Can you stop my sharing again and give it to me again?
I will. Hold on.
Give it to me again.
Okay, I give it to you again.
Many apologies to all of you, right? And what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to share only that. Is that better?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you see my screen now?
Did you see the clicking on it? Yeah. Click on that. Yeah. Give it a few seconds. Yes. Yes.
Good.
Map.
Did you see the previous material? Should I move on?
You can maybe move back again. Just briefly go through.
Excellent.
Ah, yes. Now we can see everything is moving. Yes.
That's great. Let me try and do it right. Good.
Yes.
So,
okay.
This is the editorial team.
Yes, editorial.
This is who we are. These are the rankings. This is how the journal compares with the other brand journals in site score and impact factor. And this is how it compares with the European Journal of Marketing in the same rankings, site score and impact factor. These are the submissions. And as I explained, we are receiving more submissions this year. And I really think that was the pandemic that caused the drop. These are the acceptance rates. And I was here talking about submissions. So when we started the journal, we had almost no submissions from China and India. China was 0.5 of the submissions. And now we have far more submissions from China and India. However, these submissions quite often have a very high reject rate. In terms of acceptances, here is how the map looks like. So most acceptances still come from the US, and India and China are improving. What rigor and contribution as any other journal. Rigor and contribution to theory and knowledge, and only in the areas of product and brand management. So if you send us papers outside the areas of product and brand management, there is not much, there is no any way that they can get through. They will be rejected. All methods and topics, they might report results, or they can be purely conceptual, we have no problem with that, but a clear contribution in the body of knowledge of product and brand. So you need to know the current literature and the classic literature and expand our knowledge in the field. If you don't, it's not very likely that you will go through. Rigor in the argumentation, relevant sample, appropriate data analysis, good conceptual work, well written, both in language and technical, current literature, and relevance to business, policy makers, academia, subgroup. Why papers are typically desk rejected? No relevance, I already mentioned that. And around 10% of the desk rejects are not relevant at all. And surprisingly, the percentage of papers from Malaysia that are not relevant is high, since I am based in Malaysia today. So I don't know why quite a lot of submissions are not in the areas of product and brand management when submitted. Major issue with the writing. Sometimes it's a grammar, sometimes it's a technical writing, sometimes it's the construction of the paragraphs, very long, very short, not a lot of attention in the writing overall. Replication. So again, I am presenting ICARE's brand equity in a village in Malaysia or in a sector in Malaysia or in China or in Greece. This is not going to go through. You need to have some contribution to knowledge. Too context specific. Context is important, but the important thing for our journal is not the context. We are not a journal in tourism or in journal in wine marketing. So we want to see what are the implications of this research to the discipline. And the discipline is product and brand. So if you are coming from a context perspective, you are not going to go very far. Lack of rigor and mistakes. Recently, last week, I desk rejected a paper who was trying to test hypotheses using qualitative data. Clearly, with qualitative data, you cannot test hypotheses. And unfortunately, we see quite a lot of this kind of stuff submitted, especially from non-experienced researchers. Ignoring the recent work and the recent literature. So we get papers that the literature stops in 2018. Or from 2018 to today, there are 5 references, and the majority is before. However, it needs to be half and half practically. You need to explain how something relates to the current body of knowledge. So if you have written a paper based on material you downloaded and read in 2018, it is very likely that you are not engaged with the current body of knowledge and you have problems, and you might even get desk rejected. If you want to review for the journal, please let us know. You have to have papers published in journals as good or better than the journal we are. You can submit your work on the website, and you can join the Research in Brand Management group on Facebook, where we share information about brand management and the journal. Please feel free. Currently, we have 2 special issues that I don't see here. I was sure that I had them included. Yes, give me a second. For a reason I don't know, they were hidden. One is Beyond Tech Gimmicks, Open Digital Touchpoints for Products and Brands, which is practically technology, online technology and brands, including metaverse, including virtual reality, anything that could influence products and brands online. And the deadline is the 15th of December. And the second special issue on packaging, overcoming challenges for brands in packaging, with the deadline the 30th of September. So this is the journal, and I hope you enjoyed this trip, and I'm very sorry that this was not working properly earlier on. I hope that you managed to get it. Many, many apologies. I don't control technology.
Thank you.
Are you alive? It's an hour and a quarter. I have been talking non-stop.
Thank you so much, Cleopatra. We have a lot of questions. So perhaps we will start with Prof. Ooi to ask the question.
Yeah, thank you, Garry. Yeah, Prof, actually quite a number of questions, but I pick up two first from one of the candidates. So the comments given by him, very interesting, very informative session. I have two questions. First, can you please highlight some of the most pressing branding challenges for brand managers, especially after the COVID-19 pandemic? First question.
All right. I see this question as very short-sighted, personally. The environment is the conditions we are operating in. 2 years ago, when we were in COVID, everybody was eager thinking about COVID. Now, nobody is thinking about COVID. I went to a conference last week in the US. Nobody in the flight was using a mask. We were hugging and kissing as before. And it looked to me that we are back to normal. Some people still think about COVID. And they don't realize that this seems to be something of the past. I don't know why people still think about COVID, but my personal view is that unless we have touch wood another pandemic, we are back to normal. The only thing that really changed is that quite a lot of people use technology more, became more technology literate, and some increase on online shopping that might stay or might not stay. Personally, I didn't buy any clothes in the 2 years, not even a single piece, because I want to try it on. I'm old-fashioned. If I don't try something on, I don't buy it. Some of my friends are happy to get things and return them. I'm not going to go into this hassle. I'm buying my clothes face-to-face, or I check the design, and if they don't have it in my size, I can order it, or I can order the same. But how often do you order the same clothes? I'm ordering online my shopping for the supermarket, that I know which brands I will buy. So in any case, I don't think that COVID is a concern anymore. What are the main challenges? I already mentioned some of them, and there was also a paper published in 2017 or 2018, the Journal of Product and Brand Management. For brands, the challenges are associated with the involvement of various audiences, co-creation, changes in the environment. My personal view is that metaverse is not an issue, because I don't see people living in the metaverse, although some friends are very much into it and they are talking all the time about it. I don't share the same concern, and I already published my view on a paper on that. I see that as an additional signaling medium. I hope that we won't end up living in a computer or in a screen, because when I had to do that during the pandemic and work all the time in front of the stream, I personally ended up in the hospital with thrombosis. So I hope that we're going to go to a normality. So I'm very sorry, I don't have answers for that, because I don't believe that there is a post-pandemic need, if you like. And apologies to the person asking, but that's my personal view. Kheng-Boon.
Thank you. Next question is, please, based on your in-depth knowledge of brand building, should brand managers of new products focus more on building emotional brands, or should they focus more on rational or functional breadth?
All right. So in other words, you are asking me, after you assess the information you have, whether brands should try to develop rational or emotional associations. And I will ask you, for which customer segment?
The candidate did not mention about this.
It all depends on the customer segment. So depending on the customer segment, other criteria and other aspects will be of importance. So there is no one answer do it like that. And that is the beauty of marketing and of branding. That I don't think that we are going to be replaced at any point, because it needs adjustment depending on who you are dealing with. I don't know if you have MasterChef in Asia. Do you have MasterChef, the show?
Yes.
You have it?
Yes, we do, yes.
So I think that marketing is like the ingredients challenge in MasterChef. We are training our students and we are trained on using the different ingredients, right? Yeah? But then you give these ingredients to people and you're telling them, create your own dish. And this dish needs to be given to somebody that might have allergies, might have specific tastes, might have whatever. So what we do is that we give the ingredients and we say to our people, use the ingredients. How they are going to be used and if some will be used and some will be left out depends on the goal of what you want to achieve and what your customers will be. So if your customers are allergic to gluten and you make pasta, that's a big problem, right? So how can I decide a priori whether I should focus on emotional or rational things if I don't know what the market I want to approach values? There is no one answer in this question. It depends.
Okay. Yeah, noted. Thank you, Prof. And then there are three general questions before I pass the floor to Garry. It's a very general question. Is there any maximum number of authors set by your journal? What is the ideal number of co-authors in research publication?
That's very personal of you. There is no maximum number of authors. And you can be as a large group as you think it's appropriate. But in our field, I have found that having more than 2 or 3 is very difficult to demonstrate contribution. So it's not enough to have your name on the paper. You need to have contributed to the project. And something that Emerald is doing, and I don't know if your audience is aware of or not, is that now it's very difficult to add authors after you have a paper under review. Because that was not an issue before, but as submissions from newer countries, such as China, India, Malaysia, starting appearing, we realized that very many publications were starting with 2 or 3 authors and were ending up with 6 or 7. And that was happening during the review process. And the question is, why these people were not there before? And what did they do in order to contribute in the publication? I will not be surprised if in a few years we need to also have a statement in the paper of who did what. A problem I see in publications, and that's from my observation, is that I find it totally impossible for some authors to have the publications they claim they have in a year. I've seen colleagues with 50 papers a year or 100 papers a year. 50 papers a year are 4 papers a month. It takes me 6 months to write a paper with co-authors. How these colleagues manage to write 4 in a month? I have seen colleagues with 100 a month. That means 1 paper every 3 days. Is it possible even to read it, let alone contribute into it? I personally, and that's my personal choice, I never put my name on something I haven't contributed significantly. Because I'm responsible. If you read the ethics in publications, and I strongly recommend to you to go and read ethics in publications, since we are in marketing, the Academy of Marketing Science has a very good code of ethics. You will realize that we cannot be co-authors just because. I am personally approached very often with papers ready. Can we put your name? No, thank you, you cannot. If my name is in, I need to contribute. And if I contribute, my contribution needs to be significant. So the how many names, how many co-authors, depends on what they did. Can they really prove that they added something in the paper? What was the role of each one of them?
Yeah, thank
And
you.
clearly, the more the authors, the less the value. With the exception of papers like I have a paper that I contribute the paper that we are 28 co-authors. But in this paper, there is a 500 or 700 contribution from each one of us. And it's absolutely clear. That's what I did. I wrote this 700 words. I also read the whole paper and I edited the diagrams. So the original version of the diagrams was totally different. I redesigned the diagrams. And the first author was not expecting it because I'm one of the 28. I said to him, my name is in. I don't like that. My name will not go to something with that. Have that, check it. If you like it, replace the diagrams.
Right.
And I made some comments in the other content. But the thing is that in order to have your name in any publication, you need to have significant contribution. And significant contribution doesn't mean I read the paper and I write 1 sentence. It's much more.
All right, thank you. Next question. How can authors avoid the risk of publishing in a fake or unknown journal? And how can authors evaluate, how can we evaluate a journal's quality?
How you can evaluate the journal's quality, and what was the other question? I didn't catch it.
The first is, how can authors avoid the risk of publishing in a fake or unknown journal?
The fake journal, okay. 5 years ago, I would have said to you, check Scopus. If a journal is in Scopus, chances are it's a good journal. Now, there are some journals in Scopus that are not with the same standards. They managed to get in. There are not very many. There are very few. So first, check if a journal is in Scopus. Check who is the editor-in-chief of the editorial board. Are they reputable people? If they're reputable and they're giving their name into this journal, they won't put their name into risk for a journal that's not reputable. Last check the last 2 years and try and see if any of the well-known academics in the field have published there. So by looking at these three things, you check if the journal is reputable or fake or not. I hope that is helpful. And I'm not saying check the Web of Science, because the Web of Science has less journals than Scopus. So by using Scopus rather than the Web of Science, even the emerging sources, I'm trying to be more inclusive. You can also check the Web of Science, but the Web of Science typically has a smaller number of journals.
All right, thank you. Last question from my end. How long do authors wait to hear from the journal after they have submitted their manuscript?
All right. That depends on you guys, not on us. What do I mean? I have a big fight at this point in time, argument with Emerald, because Emerald wants things to happen in 300 days, and we are higher than that from a from submission to final acceptance. Why we are higher? The paper is submitted, right? The editor-in-chief, in our journal at least, needs to read it. Last week, I was in the Academy of Marketing Science conference, and the conference was starting at 8 o'clock in the morning and was finishing with the social events or seeing friends at 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. So between 12 or 1 and 8, I needed to sleep, get a shower, because otherwise I would have been smelly, right? And be back in the conference. Do you think I also had time to check out the journal? Other people might, I didn't. I'm sorry, I'm limited abilities. I cannot do more than what I'm doing. That meant that for the 23 hours I was traveling to go, the 23 hours I was traveling to come back, the 4 days of the conference and 1 more day that I had meetings around, I couldn't do anything. All of this ended up being 7 or 8 days. Do you know how many papers were there when I returned after 7 or 8 days? 25 new submissions. Each new submission takes me half an hour to read and another quarter of an hour to write the comments if it is desk rejected. With 25 new submissions, I need around 15 hours, if not 18, work, only to clean the new submissions. There were also 5 submissions that the reviews were back. I had to read the reviews of the reviewers and the associate editors and suggest a decision. That takes another half an hour for each paper, or 3/4 of an hour. So altogether, I had a week's workload only for the journal. I worked flat. This is done because the journal is a priority for me, because I respect the authors. But I am a human, and I am trying to be punctual. And typically, when papers are in the system, we are punctual in the journal. I am trying to train to help the associate editors become the same. The big problem comes from you guys. What do I mean that by you? We are good so far with this journal. We are giving to the reviewers 4 or 6 weeks to review the papers. Quite a lot of reviewers don't return the review. If there are 3 reviewers and 1 does not return the review, the decision is going to take longer. So even if you are very punctual and you submit your review on time, and the other reviewer is not punctual, the non-punctual reviewer will have the effect. And I have the same from authors. We are giving them 3 months, I think, to make the changes. quite often, 80%, 90% of the times, they resubmit the paper an hour before the resubmission window closes. They never try to produce things earlier, which means that if a paper goes into 3 review rounds and they take 3 months each, we are already 9 months in the process. If it needs 2 weeks, let's say, or a week, let's see that we are even better. For each a round of engagement from our side, from the beginning to the end, this another month, we are 10 months in the process. And if the reviewers take 6 weeks in every round, there are 3 times I have seen the paper, this is another 2.5 months. So this is if everything works smoothly. If authors, for any reason, ask for an extension, that around 20% of the authors or reviewers ask for an extension, that might be even more. I smiled at some point because a friend of mine asked for a little bit more time, and he was asking for 12 months to revise the paper, one round. So the time varies. I have papers in the journal that have been processed in 6 months, 3 revisions, because the authors got the revision decision, worked directly, and 3 weeks later sent me the paper. And I had papers accepted in 2 years. Again, 3 rounds. Because they were taking their time like Greeks. Yeah, like me. Taking their time, and they were not, either because they were busy or because they were not trying hard enough. So there is not a specific timeline. It all depends on you as authors and as reviewers.
All right. Thank you. One more question, I think, very common question asking by the authors. If, let's say, they receive the decision, reject decision by the journal, by the EIC, and the comments given by the reviewer, normally authors, they try to appeal, all right, and ask the EIC whether they can resubmit after they have improved the paper based on the reviewer comment. Would you consider the resubmission as a new submission?
The resubmission will be not a new submission. It will be seen as that. If the paper is rejected, chances are that there is a fatal error. And the error is not easily fixable. Quite often in the desk reject, I also offer the comment that if you follow this advice and you make the changes, you can resubmit for reconsidering. However, 8 or 9 times out of 10, the resubmission has the same problems.
I see.
Because it's not that the authors did not pay attention per se when they were starting working on the paper, they don't know how to do it. So the big problem we have is the understanding of the level, which is not easy and is not easily communicated. We had some visiting scholars in Glasgow from Malaysia, and they were telling me that they have a specific number of papers they need to submit every year. And from what I discussed with them, the training on or the understanding on writing was not the same that we have here. And then they go back and they say, oh, I am from country X, and they reject me because I'm from country X. No, the country doesn't make any difference. What makes the difference is the quality of your writing. So if you get rejects, try to get training. How you can get training, I don't know. And it's not easy, especially if you have a PhD. Going to the UK or the US for a PhD is getting unbearable. Do you know how much is the fee for the PhD at this point in the University of Glasgow? I'm not happy with the amount. £23,000 a year for 3 years. So if I wanted to do my PhD, there was no way I could afford it from the background I'm coming. I don't know what the solution is. But the problem in some markets is not the country, is the level of understanding of the situation and the lack of training. So yes, we will reconsider it, but most of the times it has the same problems because this particular authoring team cannot write to this level.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Yeah, perhaps I think I'll pass the floor to Garry if there are any further questions from the candidate. Garry, maybe.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof. Ooi. So we have about 20 questions. so I'm just going to select some important questions. Okay, maybe
I'm sorry. All questions are important.
all questions are important. Okay, I will ask one by one. All right.
So take a lottery because all questions are important. I don't accept that any question is not important. The non-important
so the
question
first
is
question.
asked.
All right, I will ask all the questions. Okay, one very important question. We start from maybe on branding. So there's this question related to this. Where can we place branding addiction in the evolving scale of brand love and brand hate?
Brand addiction.
Yes, brand addiction between the scale of love and hate.
Can be two things. Brand addiction can be emotional and behavioral. If it is emotional, it's very strong brand love. If it is behavioral, is the other additional actions that consumers do, not the voice, not the wallet, the additional actions. So it depends on the conceptualization of brand addiction.
Okay, very good answer. Another question. So this question is relating to this. From your perspective, does the brand context differ from the private and public sector?
It's just a brand. It differs because it's a different environment. But the basic principles are the same. It's irrelevant whether it's a human brand, it's a place brand, it's a public sector brand, it's a private sector brand. Branding is the same. It's a corporate brand. The environment is different and the complexity is different. But they are all brands. It's like it's all food. It will give you calories. It's all brands. What are the specific idiosyncratic characteristics of a sector might influence the decisions you will take and how you will position your brand. But your thinking should be about brand strategy, how you want your brand to be perceived and what are the reactions of your audience.
Okay, another question. For an early career researcher, should they think about, creating a brand, for their career? If yes, how should they do it?
I gave a seminar in the Academy of Marketing Science webinar. It is online on creating your personal brand as a researcher. That was almost a year ago. So I'm suggesting to this person to go to the Academy of Marketing Science YouTube channel and find it. So practically what I'm suggesting in short is to choose the topics or the areas or the context or whatever you want to be known for, and focus all your research there. So being a generalist, having one paper here, one paper there, one paper somewhere else, doesn't help you. In addition, I am suggesting to the researchers to be strategic about their choices. I know people that are very well known that have made choices that do not allow them now to easily move in academia because the field that have decided to position their work in is very limited in terms of jobs or in terms of recognizability or whatever. They are brilliant researchers, but they cannot have the career they aspire and the job they aspire because of that. So you need to be strategic and think about what you want to be known as in 15 or 20 years from now. And work towards this direction as a company. Yeah, have your strategic goal and choose your projects, choose your publications, choose your outlets around that, and keep consistent. And rather than looking for short-term fixes to have some publications with anybody, think about your long-term development and make some difficult choices. When I was a young researcher, I was working in the same department with Luis Mutino. I don't know if you know of Luis Mutino. I respect him a lot. He's retired. He was a professor in the University of Glasgow, and I was a lecturer when I joined. So he invited me in a project on satisfaction with other people. I worked on that, and then he invited me in another project. And then to him I said, sorry, Luis, the project of satisfaction was outside my area. The other project you are asking me now to join is again outside my area. I will not do it. I cannot do it because by doing projects outside my area, and I have decided my area is brand management, I will not build my own brand as I want to be built. That was a very tough choice at the time because I didn't have very many senior people asking me to join them, and I'm honored, and I love Luis, and thank him so much for inviting me and for helping me in my early stages in my career. And I didn't have anybody else but myself to work on brand management. So the easiest option in the short run would be to do whatever was available rather than build my own brand. Look at me now. I am happy with what I'm doing. I'm working in an area I enjoy. It took me time, but I did it. Persistent and hard work. And goals, what you want to achieve. And I'm not saying choose an area. I have colleagues that are, rather than thinking about the area, they are methodologists. So they're experts in a specific methodology. Or they work on a country context or on a sector context. But make sure that you know what you are doing and you know what you want to be known in 10, 15 years from now. And stick to it. And you are passionate about it. So don't choose a fad, choose your passion. That's it. I don't think I have anything else to add, Garry.
Well said, well said. Okay, another question. This is interesting. Since similarity checking software like Turnitin can easily recognize AI-generated text, how do journals like Journal of Product and Brand Management view AI-generated text in papers submitted?
All right. To start with, Emerald doesn't use, in the beginning, the similarity check. It doesn't use that software. I have asked for it to be used. It's not used at this point after 9 years of me trying. So other publishers that I cannot name use it. Oh, I can't name it because I'm an associator. So Elsevier uses it, and we have the similarity test, check, and we know it. But Emerald doesn't. So it depends very much on the journal. Emerald uses it, I think, after acceptance. And that's even worse, because if the paper goes through and it's very similar, you have gone a year and a half, and then they tell you, sorry, but it's very similar, goodbye. So I'm suggesting to you to not to use anything similar like that. And this new artificial intelligence software I was reading, we are talking about a lot with other editors. Personally, I'm still not worried about it. I don't know what will happen later, but at this point, I'm not worried about it, because its writing is shallow. It cannot identify trends as human brain does. It cannot assess what is good research and what is bad research. And later on, if it is able to only check what you are suggesting it to check, I don't know how it will be. But in any case, when it's writing, it doesn't have the critical approach of a human yet to build arguments. I shared with a few editors a paper published in a neuroscience journal yesterday on that. Let me give you the title, because some of your authors might want to read it. So it was published now, 2023, a ChatGPT about the future of scientific publishing, and it is published in the Journal of Brain Behavior and Immunity. Let me share my screen. I cannot share my screen, right? You have to give me the right.
Hold on, Prof. Yes.
So people can take a picture and go and find it. So this is a very interesting paper, in my opinion. Do you see it? Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
So take a picture and go and download it and read it. It's an interesting read on ChatGPT that you were asking about. And it's not mine, as you can see, because I'm reading as well as everybody else.
Okay.
Now you don't see my screen anymore, I hope. You see me again. Hello.
Okay, another question. Can you shed some lights on the current and future trends in brand management?
All right. There is a paper published in 2017 by myself and Francisco Guzman on that in the Journal of Product and Brand Management. There is as well a bibliometric paper published last year in the Journal of Product and Brand Management on the output of brand management. And clearly, anything that changes the way we think about brands and not just what we do is of interest. So yes, new contacts are of interest, but how they change the way we think, not just how we do things. In other words, I'm smiling quite often because I am talking with people that are the previous generation than me, and they are talking about the introduction of TV advertising and how much it changed the communication landscape in their times. And I'm thinking the internet is doing the same now, or did the same 5 years, 10 years ago. And now they're talking about the metaverse like that. And what are the overall underlying themes and topics. So the most important thing is not the tactics, is the deeper thinking. And we don't do that. We are going for quick publications in environmental context informed aspects, and we are not thinking deeper. So I don't see any major trends other than the one I saw in 2017 or 18, because things in the conceptual part haven't changed that much. I see very many opportunities in contexts, but I don't know to what extent context can influence significantly the field in terms of thinking. So what are we going about? Quantity of publications or quality of thinking? Personally, when I see CVs with a very high number of outputs, I start doubting, both on the quality of the outputs and the contribution of the authors. But that's me. Not everybody is the same.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Prof. Another question. Is corporate social responsibility a brand building?
Okay. Corporate social responsibility is a signaling approach. So we are signaling what we are as a product, as a person, as a symbol, and so on and so forth, using corporate social responsibility actions. And a good corporate social responsibility campaign expressed through the brand meaning elements should be linked with the purpose of the company. Because I'm sorry, to my knowledge, I don't know any manager waking up in the morning saying, let's stress and help the environment or the society. They are always thinking about how we can get brand-related outcomes. But in order to get the brand-related outcomes, which is the last box in the model, we need to convince these people that we deserve them. So all these activities are tailored or are developed in an attempt to convince audiences that we deserve to be noticed. Hello, buy us, talk about us. If you see these people that wake up in the morning and say, let's help the environment, let's help the society, let's help the planet, come and introduce them to me, because I want to talk with them to see how they evolved as humans so much, and they are so nice and considerate. And why I cannot have them as friends? I don't know. That's my perception. I might be wrong. It's very subjective, but yes, corporate social responsibility signaling.
Okay, maybe we'll take another question. Does the journal consider citation within the journal a criteria of publication?
The journal considers citations.
Sorry, I think probably the question is something like, is it necessary for the author to cite, for example, Journal of Product and Brand Management, for them to submit to this?
Quite often, when we receive papers with 0 citations to the specialized journals, and not just the Journal of Product and Brand Management, but the Journal of Brand Management as well, we return the comment that, listen, you are trying to talk with a specific audience. And what is the audience? The researchers reading and publishing in the specialized journals in branding. how can you build a document without, by ignoring the research in these specialized journals? So it's not cite the journal you are writing for or submitting to, but cite relevant work in the specialized journals. In this point of time, there are 2 or 3 specialized journals. So it's the Journal of Brand Management, the Journal of Product and Brand Management, the Corporate Reputation Review, if you're talking about corporate brands. If you're talking about product innovation, I would suggest the Journal of Product Innovation Management. But how can you build your arguments and make your paper talk with the other papers in the field if you haven't read and incorporated in your argument, not just cite? I'm not talking about citing, I'm talking about incorporating in your argument the relevant literature. So it's not a matter of citing the journal, it's a matter of informing your argument by what is discussed in this particular field. It's like me asking me to go and talk about, let me think something that is interesting, painting, but knowing nothing about painting. I don't know how to use the colors, I don't know how to use the different piece of equipment, I'm useless. Talk about painting. You talk about brand management. You need to have the know-how. You need to know what is published there. Right? So it's not citing the journal, it's being aware and informing your arguments from the literature in the area. So if I was editing a services journal, there are 10 journals in services marketing. If I had seen 0 citation from these journals, I would have been worried.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, thank you so much, Prof. Cleopatra. Due to the time constraint, we will have to end our session today. I would like to sincerely thank again to Prof. Cleopatra for taking her valuable time to share her knowledge, and I hope today's webinar will be useful for all of you. So in addition, I would like to thank Rosita from Emerald Publishing and William as well for all the support in co-organizing today's webinar. Thank you, everyone, and till we meet again.
If I may, Gary, I would like to thank both your university and the publisher for the invitation, and even more the super people who were here with us today and spent 2 hours of their lives in front of a screen rather than a face-to-face meeting. I hope that we see you all at some point in my life in an event, and thank you for everything.
Thank you so much, Prof.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye. See you.